Hello my dear friends, this is your friend Dark Fox 3.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto became ANBU's deadliest ghost, and Ino became his first forbidden bond? Part 1. Let's start the fanfic. So these two brats are supposed to protect me? The drunken old fool named Tazuna asked the Hokage in disbelief. You should be careful with your words, Tazuna-san. They may be young but they are ninja nonetheless. They have abilities that surpass that of a civilian by far, the Hokage warned his client. Yeah right. Let me guess. Pinky here is of brooding. Tazuna taunted and everyone frowned at the drunken man. You should be careful of your words. We can always deny you our services. The Hokage threatened as a vein grew on his head. The bridge builder paled at the older man's threat. So what do you think? Will you take the mission? The old man sighed and asked no one in particular. Team 7 and his assistant knew who he was talking to while Tazuna looked at the man like he was crazy. I will take it. It sounds too fishy to be true. Maybe there will be some fun for me. A body-less eerie calm voice echoed through the room and Tazuna turned white as chalk. Well then you should introduce yourself, boy. Sarutobi smiled as he saw the client's distress. A slight chuckle was carried through the room as it began to collect itself in a shadowy corner of the room. A figure formed in the shadows and stepped out. There before everyone stood a 5 inches 8, tall young teen with back long spiky red hair and cold blue eyes. He wore black leather pants with black steel-tipped boots, a open black leather jacket with a red stripe along his arms and a see-through mesh shirt. His hite was sewed into his leather belt around his waist. On his back was a huge sword. It had a long handle with upside-down skull at the end and a broad guard and horns at the end towards the handle. Behind the guard was a long-teethed skull with the broad blade seemingly coming from its mouth. The blade was at least 10 inches broad and 1 inch thick while it held the impressive length of 5 feet. So in total it was about 6 feet long and had this evil aura around itself making you shiver by just seeing it. My name is Uzumaki Naruto and I'm the last member of your protection team, Tazuna-san. He bowed to the shivering man with a creepy smile, showing his long sharp teeth. The man could only nod his head, not trusting his own voice at the moment. Then I would suggest that you prepare yourself and we all meet at the southern gate in 1 hour. Kakashi stated and escaped the room in a puff of smoke, hoping to get away from his creepy student as soon as possible. Naruto could only smile at his sensei's behavior and melted into the shadowy corner again. Without another word the genins left the room to prepare themselves. Just as Tazuna turned to leave, the voice of the old village leader stopped him. I would advise you to handle Naruto with care and respect. He may be a ninja of Konoha but he has no problem with killing a client if he gets aggravated. He isn't called the Bloody Fang of Konoha for nothing, the man explained. Tazuna just gulped and nodded before he left the room. The old Sarutobi just smiled and turned to his paperwork. With a swift motion of his hands forming a crossed hand sign, 3 more Sarutobi popped into existence. These 3 pounced at the paperwork with a determinate expression on their faces. Meanwhile the original walked over to his couch and pulled out a small orange book from his sleeve. With a perverted giggle he opened it only to be interrupted. You know, old man, these books will be your downfall one day. Naruto smiled as he stepped out of the shadow. Kami above. The old Hokage yelled as he jumped up only to see his surrogate grandson leaning against his desk having a rare smile on his lips. Naruto. What are you doing here? The Hokage scolded but Naruto shrugged as he turned serious. Listen, old man. He stated firm and Sarutobi shut up. This mission is more dangerous than Tazuna wants to make us believe. He explained while he pulled a cigarette from inner pocket of his jacket and lit it. The man looked at the boy disapprovingly but couldn't say anything because he knew of the redhead's circumstances. What do you mean, boy? He inquired. I mean that the wave country is currently under the reign of Gato shipment. That got Sarutobi's attention. I think that we will encounter at least one missing nin C rank or higher. It's said that he has a thing for silent killings, so we could probably meet one of Kiri's missing nin. So you should upgrade the mission, the teen explained. Sarutobi analyzed his explanation and nodded. He moved to his desk and took out a scroll to update the mission from C to A and handed it to the boy. I'm making you the one in command. Should you encounter a missing nin above B rank, you will take command and lead for the rest of the mission with Kakashi as your second in command, the man explained, and Naruto nodded. The teen began to leave but stopped shortly before the shadowy corner and looked over his shoulder. Oh, an old man? He asked, and Sarutobi looked towards him. Tell Jiraiya-sensei not to peek at the hot springs. If I find out that he spied on her, I promise you that he has been a man for the longest time of his life, the boy warned, and his eyes flashed white for a second before he vanished into the shadows. I hate it when he does that. Sarutobi mumbled, a bit afraid for his old student. Near the hot springs, a white-haired man felt a cold shiver run down his spine. I think I should pass on my research for today, or I think I will lose something very important to me. He thought, a bit scared, and shielded his groin involuntarily while he walked away to a bar. A group of girls in the hot springs felt a sudden relief and relaxed into the warm water. Guess the pervert got scared off, they all thought with a big goofy smile as they soaked. An hour later, Team 7 and their client were at the gate. Well, everyone expect Naruto. Now then, let's go. Kakashi ordered, and they began their journey. Hey, where is that Naruto boy? Tazuna asked as he looked around. Don't waste your time. He is around. Kakashi just shrugged, and he felt a shudder run down his spine. I think I just pissed off the devil. I should learn to keep my mouth shut. He thought, and eyed his surrounding careful. Just as they passed through the gate, a small shadow emerged from the gate's shadow into Tazuna's. The man felt a shiver and looked around but didn't see anything. So he just shrugged it off and followed his protection team, hoping that they wouldn't find out the truth. Hours passed and the little group didn't really make any advance. Because of the old bridge builder, they were forced to move at civilian pace, which made them quite a target for enemies. It was late afternoon as something caught Kakashi's eye. There, further before them, was a puddle of water, even though it hadn't rained in days. He decided it would be a good test for his team to see how far advanced they really were. Without any sign of interest, he switched with a log that he had hanged into a copy of himself. Just as he predicted, the puddle was a trap. The team passed it, and out of it came two masked ninja with a evil glint in their eyes. They jumped the unprepared team and client and cut his copy into pieces. To his disappointment, they behaved like bloody rookies. Sakura and Tazuna froze up like statues, and Sasuke charged head-on, only to be smacked away like a simple fly. He just wanted to intervene, but he knew he was too late. His team was doomed. The attackers threw their chains at Sakura and Tazuna only for something unexpected to happen. Out of the bridge builder's shadow, 4 black chains shot forward and deflected the incoming ones. They hovered around the two in a protective manner, like they had a mind of their own. A eerie cackle echoed through the area that made everyone freeze up. Suddenly, a black hand shot out of the mon's shadow and began to pull a evenly black figure with white glowing eyes out of it. As it had fully emerged the shadow, the darkness began to retract and revealed tan skin along with black leather clothes and a giant sword. The figure laughed like a madman, and he looked at the frightened enemies. Only now they seemed to notice that the chains from before were coming from his back like they were extensions of his body. So. Well, the demon brothers of Kiri. So I was right that Gato would hire someone like you. He chuckled with his creepy smile showing his fangs. The brothers looked at him in sheer terror. They knew who they were facing. An enemy so strong that they would never stand a chance. Before them stood the bloody fang of Konoha. Gozu whispered afraid. So you know me. Then I don't need to waste time to introduce myself. Naruto gave them a soft smile. Then he tilted his head and the smile changed into a predatory smile. Now let's have some fun. He cackled and ran in between them, grabbing their faces in the process and dragging them into the forest. Team 7 and Tazuna looked in the direction their companion had dragged the two missing nin with such ease, showing them once again why he was a special jonin and they just mere genin. Though they shivered at the thought of the two enemies' fate. Ear-splitting screams echoed through the forest and they flinched in fear. The screams sounded of fear and pain, but most overall of true terror. Just the thought what he was doing to them made them piss their pants. Minutes of terror-filled screams passed till they fell silent. Kakashi had used the time to rejoin his team and client and soothe their worries. 10 minutes later, the sound of breaking branches made everyone look into the dark forest. Naruto emerged happily whistling while juggling two scrolls between his hands. Naruto, what happened? Kakashi asked, a bit fearful. Let's just say that they didn't want to cooperate at first, but as you know I can be very convincing. Naruto's smile vanished into a neutral face. Kakashi took a step back, not wanting to anger the young jonin any further. He once had a talk with the teen and he still had scars to prove it. Wah! What's in the scrolls, Naruto? Sakura asked carefully. Oh, in these. Only the remains of the recently deceased demon brothers. He shrugged and put the scrolls into a seal on the inside of his jacket, not that the others knew about that. Truth be told, only in one of them were the remains of the deceased brothers while the other one held his new acquired food. So Tazuna-san, I believe you have some explaining to do. Naruto stared at his client and stressed the honorific. I don't know what you mean. The old man began to sweat. From my interrogation I got the informations that these two along with Zabuza the demon of the hidden mist were hired by Gato to get rid of you. Now tell me, old man, why does that fat midget want your death? He inquired, a bit angered. Tazuna was now pale as death and he looked like a deer in the headlights. He began with a shaky voice. Don't you dare to lie to me or you will get to meet a side of me that only a few have ever met and even less survived. The teen snarled, baring his fangs. Don't you think it's enough, Naruto? Kakashi tried to soothe the teen's anger. With a heavy sigh and a short snarl he turned around and continued the journey to Wave. Come on. We have a mission to finish. He growled while looking over his shoulder. The others could have sworn that they saw his eyes flash white for a second but shrugged it off, hoping that he would continue the journey in silence, not wanting to deal with his anger. They had once seen the boy in action. To be precisely when their sensei. Make that former sensei. Mizuki attacked him as he entered the classroom and Naruto grabbed him by his throat and ripped him apart, making quite a mess. His sensei, the Toad Sanin Jiraiya, just stood the door and watched the scene, not intervening with his students' actions. After that no one dared to attack him. Though he and Sasuke had been friends long before Naruto had left the village with 6 years, they were still good friends despite the teen's short-fused temper. During the walk he sunk deep into his own thoughts, walking only by instinct. Flashback. You should be careful to not let your anger get the better of you, boy. Jiraiya warned as he sat down after one of their little spars. Oh, shut up, sensei. I'm totally in control. Even Nei-san says that I'm fine. A younger Naruto huffed. You shouldn't believe everything the fox tells you. Foxes are born pranksters after all, the old man stated dry. I trust her as much as I trust you, Jiraiya. If it hadn't been for the regenerative abilities she provided me, I would have never lived through the transition, and you know that, the boy warned. I know that, and like you, I'm thankful for that, but she is still a demon. The Sannin just sighed and leaned against a tree. She may be a demon, but then again, what am I? I'm not a human anymore, that's for sure. The boy smiled and leaned against a boulder as he lit a cigarette. The toad Sannin looked at the boy with a frown. You know that I don't like it when you smoke. You are too young for that. The man frowned. And you know that I don't care. Heck, I can't even get lung cancer even if I wanted to. Naruto blew a bluish cloud in the air. I know, but it's just, you are technically way too young to smoke even with your Kekkei Genkai, the Sannin said, not thinking about what he said. Naruto flinched at the mentioning of his Kekkei Genkai. Its activation was the hardest and most painful experience he ever had. If it hadn't been for the Kurumi-chan's healing factor, he wouldn't have survived it. Jiraiya finally realized what he had said and looked guilty at his young student. I'm sorry, Naruto. I didn't mean to, he began, but Naruto interrupted him. Don't worry about it, sensei. It happened and you can't take back what was already said. So just forget it. The short-haired redhead shrugged. Dash. Flashback end. Dash. Naruto snapped out of his thoughts as Sasuke threw a kunai into the bushes at the side of the road. While Sakura walked over to check if he had hit something, Naruto sharpened his senses to his surroundings. Then he heard it. A whirling sound that came closer, a high velocity. Everybody down. He bellowed and pulled Tazuna to the ground as the other did so too. Just as they ducked, a giant sword flew over them and embedded itself in a tree. Its wielder appearing on the long hilt and smirking under the bandages on his face. He jumped of his sword, pulling it from the tree in a swift motion and placing it on his shoulder. Well, well, well. Kakashi the copycat nin. What an honor. Well, well, well. Kakashi the copycat nin. What an honor. Zabuza smiled under hid bandages as he eyed the team that was supposed to protect his target till his eyes fell on a red head. He gulped. Why? You, he stuttered and stepped back. Why is he so afraid of this boy? Tazuna thought, amazed. Well, hello, Zabuza. It's an honor to finally meet you. The redhead bowed mockingly. Wah. What are you doing here? He stuttered. I don't know what you mean. I'm a Jonin of Konoha after all and was ordered to accompany this mission. Naruto shrugged with a fanged grin. Wah. Zabuza tried to regain his composure. Naruto just sighed and passed the tall man a book which he caught. Page 189. The teen yawned and leaned against a tree. His eye twitched for a second before he smirked. Despite everyone watching, no one noticed him creating a shadow clone in the tree which left the group. Zabuza in the meantime had opened the book at said page and his eyes widened. Sasuke had also pulled out his bingo book and opened said page. The genins and client's eyes also widened. Dash. Name. Naruto Uzumaki. Rank. S rank Special Jonin. Alias. Bloody Fang of Konoha, the dark-blooded beast. Allied village. Konohagakure. Allies. Mei Terumi Godime Mizukage. Jiraiya the Toad Sennin. Tsunade of Slug Sennin. Yoshiyuki Kaneko Fire Daimyo. Skills. Ninjutsu, ANBU level. Don't engage in close combat. Ranged jutsu have a slight chance of success. Genjutsu. High Jonin level. Horrific illusions. Can break every genjutsu cast on him. Taijutsu. ANBU level. Uses a unknown style called Blackfist. Don't engage in battle. Kenjutsu. Low ANBU level. Uses the Wind Dragon style. Don't engage in battle unless the same level. Fuinjutsu, Seal Master, greater Seal Master than Jiraiya of the Sennin. Kills, Raiga of the Seven Swordmen of the Mist. Yugura Yondaime Mizukage. Deidara of Iwakager. Sasori of the Red Sand. Danzo Shimura. Kabuto Yakushi. Obito Uchiha aka Tobi. Bounty. Iwa 100.000.000 Ryo. Engage with care. Odo 350.000.000 Ryo. Flee on sight. Dash. Everyone gawked at the teen who just yawned. Kakashi stared at him in disbelief. He killed Obito, but Obito is long dead. The one-eyed Jonin thought confused. I know what you are thinking, Kakashi. Naruto sighed and broke the man out of his musing. Kakashi looked at him confused. Obito survived his accident and went crazy. It seems he saw you killing Rin and snapped. After that he planned to kill everyone. Naruto paused and sighed. He had to be stopped. The teen finished and turned to Zabuza. So what now, Zabuza? You still want to fight? He paused again as the memories of his clone came back to him. Because you associate doesn't seem to be so interested. He finished. I don't want to fight. I know when I'm outmatched. The man sighed. So you will simply retreat? Sakura asked, confused only to be at the receiving end of a death glare. You should thank him, girl. If it wasn't for your friend here I would have killed you all. Zabuza snarled. Calm down, Zabuza. There is no need for bad blood. Naruto soothed the mont's anger with his own little pun. Kakashi flinched at the teen's little pun because he knew exactly what he meant. You are right. No need for me to spill blood of some fresh genins. Zabuza sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Missing Nin and Jonin noticed the sudden shudder that ran over the teen and got a bad feeling. You are right. Naruto trailed off with a dreamy look in his eyes. No one dared to go closer to him till he suddenly shook his head. You may want to have your former partners back, Zabuza. He sighed and pulled out a scroll. The missing Nin, he stared at the scroll before it dawned on him. Nah, you can have their bounty. I'm don't leech of others' work all too much. He answered calm. So come on now, Zabuza. We have much to talk about. Naruto looked eager all of a sudden and walked up to the man. Zabuza just eyed the boy wary till he walked past him and gestured him to follow him. You guys go on ahead to Tazuna's house. I will meet you there. Naruto called and the two nins left into the woods. Team 7 and their client stared at the spot they vanished from in confusion. Just when did you get so strong, Naruto? Sasuke thought a bit sad that his friend had changed so much. Obito, what happened to you? Kakashi thought somber. Naruto is scary. Sakura thought with a shiver. This boy is terrifying. Tazuna gulped. Come on, let's move. How far is your house away, Tazuna-san? Kakashi decided to get the mission on the move. Just a few minutes from here. Tazuna snapped out of his thoughts. Well then, let's go. Kakashi ordered and the group made their way to their client's house. All of them a bit wary of what Naruto was planning. Hours later, Team 7, Tazuna, his daughter Tsunami and her son Inari were sitting at the dining table eating dinner. A sudden knock on the door called their attention to it. Tazuna and his family were afraid. Could it be one of Gato's men? Did he find out about Tazuna going to Konoha for help? Kakashi nodded for Tsunami to open the door while he pulled out a kunai and prepared himself to attack. Careful and with trembling hands she reached for the door and turned the handle. Slowly the door crept open and revealed a shadow before it. Just as Kakashi wanted to pounce on the figure, a eerie calm voice spoke. If I were you, Kakashi, I wouldn't even think of moving. The voice whispered from behind him. He could feel cold steel on his neck and realized that the figure was already behind him. But he also recognized the voice. "Oh, it's you, Naruto." Kakashi tried to sound relaxed, but the teen noticed the slight tone of fear. "You are getting rusty, Kakashi," he stated and stepped back while he put his sword away. Tsunami eyed the newcomer with a mixture of fear and awe. "Say, Naruto, where is your giant sword?" Tazuna asked, careful. "I sealed it away. I decided to use my secondary swords. They are far better for fast combat," Naruto explained calm as he turned to Tsunami. Everyone eyed the two weird short swords on his back. Their scabbards were crossed on his back and reached over his shoulders. They looked like short broad swords with a bend-down handle. The handle itself was wrapped with dark red cloth. But what caught their attention were the weird cylindric things at the end of the blade. Think Squall's gunblade from Final Fantasy VIII. I'm sorry for my late coming. I had to take care of a few things before I came here. My name is Uzumaki Naruto and I'm a member of the team to protect your father. It's nice to meet you. The teen bowed with a calm smile. My name is Tsunami. It's nice to meet you, Naruto-kun. She also bowed. Would you like to join us for dinner? She asked as the three walked back to the table. That's a kind offer, but I have to decline. My body can't digest normal food anyway. I have my food with me and will eat later. He explained with a kind smile. You can also eat your food with us. It's more comfy to eat with more people. Tsunami's smile never left her lips. I don't think that you would like it if I was to unpack my food. It would ruin your appetite for sure. Naruto leaned back in his chair and watched everyone. His comrades just ate their food along with Tazuna, not really wanting to know what he meant by it, or in Kakashi's case knew what he meant and didn't want to think about it. Tsunami and Inari on the other hand were more curious. In a spark of confidence she tried to challenge him. It can't be so bad if you eat it, she stated. Naruto thought about it for a moment before he pulled out a scroll. A scroll that was somehow very familiar to her. Hey, isn't that the scroll he had after he interrogated the demon brothers? She whispered to Sasuke, who looked at it and nodded. The young Jonin unrolled it and placed his hand on a sealing matrix. With a push of chakra, a plum of smoke appeared, and when it appeared, when the smoke vanished, it showed a small bottle made of metal. He opened the bottle and took a swig before he held it to Tsunami. Take a smell and you will know why I didn't want to unpack it here, he stated firm, and she suddenly felt unsure. Yet she steeled herself and took the bottle to hold it beneath her nose. With a short sniff she began to take in the smell of the liquid inside of it. It smelled metallic. She knew that smell from somewhere. Where have I smelled that before? She tried to remember. Suddenly her mind froze. She remembered that smell. That horrible smell. A smell she hoped to never smell again. The smell of blood. Her eyes widened and she looked at Naruto. The bottle slipped from her hand and would have crashed on the table, sputtering its content, but Naruto caught it easily before he sat down again. I warned you, Tsunami-san. You wouldn't like it. He shrugged and took another swig. Why? She stuttered. Why I'm drinking it? He formed the question for her. She could only nod, not really trusting her voice. He just sighed and looked at Kakashi, who nodded and began to place silencing seals on the walls. When he was finished, he took a seat again. What I will reveal to you now is a S-rank secret. If you tell anyone about this, you will be executed on the spot, Naruto stated, serious. Everyone paled but nodded. The reason why I drink blood, everyone paled even more at that, is because of my Kekkei Genkai. I am a vampire. To sustain my life and power I need to drink blood. Along with it I gain certain abilities. I gain the memories of everyone I drink blood from. It powers my special abilities like the one you have witnessed before, Tazuna-san. Naruto nodded to the old man who stared at him questioning. The power to travel inside shadows is one of my abilities. As long as I hide inside someone's shadow, this person can't be harmed because all damage will immediately transfer to me. I also have advanced senses along with enhanced strength and stamina. Naruto explained calm as his eyes turned white, leaving only his black slit pupils. This is a sign that I'm using some of my abilities, he explained, and his eyes returned to the blue color. There was silence in the room. No one dared to say something. Say, Naruto. Sakura trailed off, not sure if she wanted to know. Yes, Sakura? He asked patiently. Did you ever? She trailed off once again. Kill someone for his or her blood? Yes. Did I ever kill a villager of Konoha? Yes, on weekly basis. Were they innocent? No, because I only feed on prisoners in the death row. Did I ever feel guilty about my doings? At first, yes, but nowadays I have accepted it as a part of my whole being. I am a vampire, a servant of the Shinigami herself, blessed by her herself. I am a monster who knows no equal. Though there are some side effects when I drain a human, Naruto finished. What side effects? Kakashi asked, not knowing of this. I gain some of the victim's personality when I drain them. That's why I was so short-tempered when we began the mission, and now thanks to the new blood my personality changed again, even if just a bit, he explained and stood up. He began to walk to the front door when he stopped. Oh, and boy, he called, making everyone look at Inari and then at him. You shouldn't spout nonsense like giving up is the only choice. Giving up never gets you anywhere, because only those who are courageous enough to step forward can forge their own way in life. Now you should be brave for your family because they really need it, he stated, and left the house and its inhabitants to think about the just said. Sasuke lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking of what his old friend had told them hours ago. Flashback. Sasuke and his mother sat on the veranda of their house and looked at the garden. Foot tapping from behind alerted them to the presence of a visitor. Sasuke turned around and looked over Makoto's shoulder. The door slid open and revealed Itachi in his full ANBU gear, only wasn't he wearing his mask. Itachi ni! Sasuke yelled and bolted for his big brother. Itachi laughed and picked the black blur up as he reached him. Hey there, Sasuke. How are you? I hope you are not causing any trouble again. He laughed and Sasuke pouted childish. You're home early, son. Makoto smiled as she walked over to her sons. Suddenly a somber expression crossed his face and his eyes hushed to the side. She followed his eyes and gasped. There beside him stood a young dirty child. Covered in dirty and bruises and clothed in bloody rags stood there a little boy, not older than Sasuke. Kami above. She gasped and covered her mouth with a hand. She tried to reach out to the boy only for him to flinch away, looking like a cornered animal. He seemed to search for a escape route. Makoto flinched back, not wanting to believe how frightened this child was. Itachi ni, who is that? Sasuke asked from his brother's arms as he eyed the dirty child. That is Naruto. I'm one of his protectors, Itachi explained calm. Naruto? Makoto gasped again, not wanting to believe it. The son of her long-time friends looking like this. Ready to bolt on the next chance. What happened to him? She muttered as she crouched down before him. The villagers were after him again. Itachi sighed, not really wanting to talk about it. Come here, Naruto. I won't hurt you. Makoto whispered to the boy only for him to grab Itachi's leg and hide his face in it. He is too afraid of anyone beside the ANBU Corps. I hoped he would open up a bit, but it seems like the villagers finally succeeded and broke his spirit. He is nearly apathetic to everyone. It's like he isn't even there anymore. Itachi sighed and carefully patted the boy's head, not receiving a smile or any kind of reaction. Why are the villagers so mean to him? Sasuke asked, not really understanding what was going on. Because they are narrow-minded fools, little brother. They fear what they don't understand. Itachi explained, calm, but the anger in his voice was evident. Careful not to surprise him too much, Makoto reached out to the boy and brought him into a careful hug. Just as her arms wrapped around him, he began stiffen but didn't protest. His eyes darted around, hoping to finally find a escape route. The hug was warm to him, but he didn't care. The touch of another person was unfamiliar to him. This warmth was frightening to him. He only felt some kind of warmth when the villagers attacked him and his own blood ran over his skin. So his young mind had only one way to react. It shut down, awaiting the pain. But nothing happened. Come on, Naruto, let's get you cleaned up. Makoto whispered and picked him up. Want to come you too? She asked her sons. I will come. I'm his protector after all. Itachi stated monotone. Sasuke stared at his brother, mother and the weird boy. So to not be left out, he hugged his brother. I wanna come. He begged. Okay, little brother, but please give Naruto his space. He is afraid of other people. Itachi whispered to his brother, who nodded. 3 of them went to the bath while Makoto went to get towels for them. When she entered the bath, she gasped again. There said a Naruto still covered in dirt. But what caught her eye were the many scars that littered his little body. All kind of scars ran over his body, from small scratches over rigged cutting wounds to burn marks. There even fresh wounds that were healing at a fast pace. She knew of the Kyuubi and its healing capabilities towards its host. Carefully she scooted to the boy and pressed a wet sponge against his bare back, making him flinch but still stay in place. The boy watched their mother clean the frightened boy. It pained Sasuke to see someone his age being treated like this. Why? Why would they do something like that? He tried to understand. Don't think about it, Sasuke. You wouldn't understand it anyway. There are things you are better of not knowing. Itachi whispered as he noticed his little brother's confusion. Sasuke only nodded, believing his big brother and hoping that it was for the best. After the bath, they brought the boy to the family dinner, where many clan members looked at the boy with concern. Even the stoic Fugaku gulped as he saw how the poor child looked. He knew that the villagers were monsters and tried to use his influence in the Uchiha police to protect him, but they couldn't be everywhere at the same time. This boy was one of the reasons why he and the elders had planned a coup against the village and these monsters in the civil council that allowed and even supported the abuse of the Kyuubi vessel. Makoto threw her husband a look and shook her head, and he sighed. I think we have to cancel our plans for the village, he stated, serious, gaining many gasps. But Fugaku-sama. One man tried to protest only to be shut up by his glare. We have a higher priority right now. He paused and looked at the boy, who eyed everything with an apathetic look. We need to protect this child from these monsters that live in this village till he is strong enough to protect himself. I hereby declare that from this day onward Uzumaki Naruto will be placed under the protection of the Uchiha clan. With that, Naruto's new life began. Over the next months he began to open up to the Uchihas, and after a year he even began to smile again. Flashback end. Sasuke sighed as he remembered how Naruto had stepped into his life only to leave 2 years later again when Jiraiya came and picked him up, saying that he was his godfather and would train him. The perverted Sennin didn't make it out of the compound unharmed. Many of the clan had made a space for Naruto in their hearts and punished him for abandoning the boy for so long. He didn't even dare to make any kind of research for the rest of his stay in Konoha. Not that Sasuke knew of that back then. With that, he turned around and fell asleep, hoping to finally find a way back to his friend with secret being revealed. After Naruto left Tazuna's house, he jumped into the trees and made his way to his target while talking to his Nei-chan. "Say Nei-chan, was it right of me to tell them the truth?" he asked his tenant. "I think they deserve to know, Otuto. They work with you after all," Kunami said in his mind. "I think so too, but I just don't like people looking at me like I'm crazy," he sighed. "I know what you mean," she sighed. Naruto stopped on a branch and looked down. He stood before a large mansion. "This little midget," he snarled as the smell of fear swang by him. "Calm down, Otuto. No need to explode right here. You better make him suffer." Kunami snarled, also pissed. With that, the teen vanished and reappeared on the roof. He crouched beside a window and opened it silently with a kunai. Without making a noise, he slipped inside and sneaked over the beams and looked for his target. Finally, he found the man. Gato was truly a midget. He thought Zabuza had exaggerated when he told him about the idiot who hired him. This time the teen slipped into the shadows of the intermediate ceiling and fell to the ground right into the shadow of a flower pot. From there he watched the room and was disgusted. There in the king-sized bed lay 5 women. This fat midget had disgraced them and covered them in his liquids. A snarl escaped him as he analyzed the situation. "You are a dead man, Gato," he thought, angry, and could feel that Kunami agreed with him. Naruto slipped into the next shadow and then into the next till he finally reached the shadow of the desk at which the man sat. He then entered the man's shadow and gained control over his body. "Good thing that you found a way to enter someone's mind, though their shadow." Kunami smiled at her brother. Naruto sent her a evil smile, knowing full well that she also enjoyed it to smash some bastard's soul. Gato didn't even know what came over him as his mind was set to sleep and Naruto took control. Forming a clone inside Gato, he left the body and materialized beside him. "I will raid his safe and you will call his men together. You know what to do," the original stated, serious as he walked over to a self-portrait of the bastard. Gato only nodded and left the room. Naruto ripped the portrait of the wall, gaining the attention of one of the women who was actually awake. Fast he turned to her and made soothing gesture. "I'm here to help. Gato won't hurt you anymore," he soothed her as he walked over. She began to sob and grabbed his jacket. Her sobs actually woke up the other women and they stared at the teen. "Don't worry, I will bring you out of here." "Are there more?" he asked quietly, not to frighten them. There are more, in the dungeon," one whispered. "I will free them once I have raided all of Gato's belongings. By that time my partner should have cleared a path for us to leave through," he stated firm while creating a clone, shocking the women. "Don't worry. I'm a ninja from Konoha." He smiled and switched with the clone. With that, the clone soothed the women while he cracked the safe. When he opened it, he couldn't help but whistle. In it were many scrolls and a huge load of cash. Quickly he pulled out 4 sealing scrolls and sealed everything up while reading the account books in the safe. One scroll held all the money Gato had stolen from Wave with some extra money along with all right on his company. Another one held Zabuza's payment. Naruto was a monster, but he knew that the man and his companion needed the money. The third held the rest of the money that he would keep for himself. And finally the last one held all the scrolls from the safe. The scrolls held secret clan jutsus. Everything. Ninjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, fuinjutsu and kinjutsu. They were too dangerous to leave them in civilian hands. In the meantime, Gato had rounded all his men for a discussion. "Why did you call us Gato-san?" one thug asked. "Oh, I just wanted you all in one place for a little surprise," he grinned. "What kind of surprise?" Another idiot asked. Gato's grin grew even further. Your sudden demise, he yelled. Immediately hundreds of clones emerged from the shadows and killed everyone present. When all of Gato's men were dead, the clones turned to Gato. Everyone, henge into the thugs that you killed and pretend to be them. Seal up every body for that we can get money and incarnate the rest. Leave no trace behind. Gato yelled. The clones did just that and went to work. With that, Gato went back into his mansion. Meanwhile, Naruto had freed the rest of the slaves and got them some clothes to cover their bodies. They left the mansion just as Gato entered it again. The women whimpered as they saw the midget with his guards. Don't worry. That's not Gato. Naruto soothed them and they looked at him weirdly. Hey boss. Everything is going as planned. Gato stated firm, confusing the poor women further. Don't worry ladies. I'm controlling Gato right now. He has no free will at the moment. He would even kill himself if I told him to. Naruto explained. The women stared at him in disbelief and he shrugged. Gato, slap yourself in the face. He deadpanned. Gato did as told and slapped himself hard. The former slaves stared at the two in disbelief. Come on, let's get going ladies. I want to have you all at home by morning, Naruto stated. He wanted to walk outside but was stopped by Gato. You should wait a bit boss. It's quite messy outside. He stated firm, not wanting to let the women see the mess he had created earlier. One woman or more of a girl his age was actually more curious than afraid because of her suffering. She stepped outside and gasped. There was a huge army of Naruto's incarnating Gato's thugs while others transformed into said thugs. What is going on here? She stuttered. It's part of a big plan. Let's just say that I want to make Gato suffer as much as possible. Naruto shrugged as he stepped beside her. The other women actually got curious and stepped outside only to gasp. Some of them even smiled at the sight of actual justice being served. Come on, let's go ladies. This is no place for you, the teen stated, and they left the mansion while Gato walked inside. Gato woke up at his desk feeling a bit woozy. He looked around and found the woman he had earlier lying on the bed. With a smug grin he walked over to his safe and opened it. He eyed his whole treasure. All the things he had stolen or gained through blackmailing or ordering the murder of innocent people. Now he only had to get rid of that builder and then the whole wave country would belong to him. He laughed hysterical and walked over to the bed, letting his hand sliding over the leg of one of his slaves. The woman shuddered under his touch but stayed asleep. He didn't notice the evil being hiding in his shadow or that everything he worshipped was just an illusion by the being. Gato had nothing left without even knowing it. Naruto walked up to a clearing in the woods, closely followed by the freed women. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he mumbled, and two clones appeared without any smoke. The women were once again surprised but didn't say anything. Wordless, the clones made their way into the clearing and placed each other at each side of the clearing. They began to make hand signs. Wood release. House growing jutsu, the two shouted, and the wood shot from the ground between the two. The wood formed into a flat. The new formed object was a large flat in traditional Japanese style. With that, the clones vanished without a sound. Everyone stared at the newly created building. Come on girls, let's get you inside, Naruto stated as he walked in. Why are we here? A girl asked. I can't let you back in the village as of now. I have plans for Gato. Until then you are better off here. I don't know if he has any hence man outside the mansion, the teen explained calm and continued his walk. The women only nodded and followed the teen. Inside the flat they stared around amazed. The house was fully furnished. This is amazing. One woman breathed. It's a technique only 3 people can perform, me included. Naruto stated calm and walked over to the balcony on the backside of the house. There he created 5 shadow clones and they vanished into the forest. These 5 will take care of you till everything is cleared out. They will tend to your needs while I proceed to free Wave. The vampire teen explained calm. So we should just live here while you go back and risk your life for us? A girl asked, a bit angry. I'm not risking my life. I'm too strong for that. He looked over his shoulder and smiled. And besides, I'm a monster. There is no one so far that could kill me, he stated as his eyes turned white and he bared his long white fangs. The women flinched at his sight but didn't say anything. Don't worry about your safety. Nothing will harm you while my clones are around. He paused as the memories of one clone returned to him. And from the looks of it, there seems to be a hot spring near here, he continued and smiled. Okay, I have to go now. My team is waiting for me, he stated as 4 clones emerged from the forest with all kinds of stuff. They carried hunted animals, firewood and some kind of moss. With that, the teen vanished in the shadows, creeping the women out. Don't worry about him. The boss isn't really a person for big company, a clone stated calm. What do you mean? A woman asked. The boss has never opened up to someone except his sister. He was treated like a monster even before he actually became one, the clone explained as he began to spread the moss on the chairs as some kind of cushion. What do you mean with monster? The woman continued. Are you familiar with the term Jinchuriki? The clone with the firewood asked. All the women shook their heads except one. You mean the container of the bijus, right? She asked. The clones nodded sadly while the women stiffened at the mentioning of the biju. The boss is a Jinchuriki and the villagers attacked him because of their blind anger. Hadn't it been for his biju, he wouldn't have survived his first week alive because the villagers were constantly after his life, the first sight while he skinned the animals they caught. Which one? The woman asked calm, but the fear was evident. Would you please give us your name before we continue? The 4th clone asked as he helped the first. I'm Ayane Tagua. Now please answer my question, she stated firm. The boss holds the Kyubi no Kitsune, the second answered. There was a death-like silence in the flat, only interrupted by the clones working. Why are you telling us all that? If your boss is so antisocial, then why are you telling us all that? Shouldn't you be more like him? A girl asked, breaking the silence. You are right, we should be the same and we usually are, but the boss made us 4 different so we would be a better company for you all. It wouldn't be a good idea if we were as cold as him, the 3rd clone stated as he finished spreading the moss. So come on now, let us all introduce ourselves so we can get along better, a woman stated and everyone nodded. Naruto fell out of a tree beside Tezuna's house, startling Team 7 and Tezuna, who were planning their upcoming training and guard duty. They turned to look at him. Hey Naruto, where were you? Kakashi asked lazy while reading his smut. Oh, I was just sightseeing and getting some new food. The teen shrugged, not planning to tell the team about his plans. Everyone shuddered at the mentioning of food and didn't want to ask any further. Okay, with Naruto being back we can start your training, Kakashi explained before he turned to Naruto, never letting his smut sink from before his eyes. Naruto, could you guard Tezuna while I train my team? He asked lazy. Will do. But you shouldn't be so lazy, Kakashi. It can backfire one day, Naruto stated and gestured Tezuna to go ahead. With that, the Konoha nins separated once again. Team 7 walked into the forest near the house and began the tree walking exercise. Meanwhile, did Naruto and his client reach the bridge? They were greeted by only 4 men. Morning, Akudo. Where is everyone else? Tezuna greeted his coworker. Morning Tazuna. There is no one else except us four. Akudo stated sadly. What do you mean? Tazuna looked shocked. I mean that there is no one except us four who are willing to risk their lives for this bridge. Gato is brutal. Akudo sighed and rubbed his lower arms. Don't worry about Gato. He won't harm any of you as long as I'm here. Naruto stated firm. And you are kid? Another worker asked. I'm a Jonin from Konohagakure and here to protect the bridge builder Tazuna along with his family and coworkers. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto introduced himself. The bloody fang of Konoha. One worker whispered a bit afraid. Don't worry, as long as I'm here there will come no harm to you. Naruto gave a fanged smile and created over 20 clones. These guys will you in any way you might need them, just don't ask them too much or they can get aggravated. Naruto explained and leaned against the fence on the border of the bridge. With that everyone went to work once again and with brightened up spirits. Things seemed good for the people of Wave once again. Time skip 3 days. Naruto wandered through the forest to ease his mind. While his clones took care of Tazuna and the bridge. Suddenly he felt something and smiled. Well hell Haku. How are you doing? The teen asked seemingly no one. Just then a hunter nin fell out of a tree behind him and landed in a crouch. Hello Uzumaki-sama. Haku stated monotone. Please stop that Haku. We are the same age. There is no need for such honorifics. The teen stated. Haku just bowed and Naruto groaned at the teen's behavior. Very well Naruto-san. He stated firm while Naruto face-palmed. So how is Zabuza doing? He changed the topic. Zabuza-sama is bored out of his mind. He wishes to know when you plan to move. The other teen snickered. Finally you are showing some emotions Haku. The vampire thought. Then tell him that we move tomorrow afternoon. Naruto smiled and Haku left in a ice shunshin. Interesting. A Hyouten user. Maybe a Kekkei Genkei. I should ask him later for a bit blood. Naruto thought with a smile. With that he also vanished but in his characteristic lightning shunshin. Flashback. Zabuza followed the vampire teen into the forest. In a clearing they came to a stop and leaned against a tree. So what do you wanna talk about Bloody Fang? Zabuza asked careful. First call me Naruto. Second how about you come from out Haku? Naruto explained called the last part. Zabuza's eye twitched but gave a short nod. Right then the hunter nin fell out of a tree and walked to Zabuza's side. So what do you want Naruto? Zabuza asked again. I have a plan to get rid of Gato. The teen stated blunt. What do you mean? Zabuza growled with the edge of anger in his voice. Don't worry Zabuza. I will give you guys your share once everything is over. The teen yawned bored as he looked at his fingernails. What are you planning boy? Zabuza asked curious. I will give Gato a spectacular end and free the Wave country. Last time he might have escaped me but not this time. Naruto stated firm and cold. This sounds interesting. Tell me more. Zabuza smiled under his bandages and leaned forward. Flashback end. Naruto reappeared near Tazuna's house and was greeted by Tsunami doing the laundry. Hello Tsunami-san. Can I help you? Naruto greeted. Hello Naruto-san. Thank you but you don't have to worry about it. You have more important work to do. She greeted. Don't worry. Your father and the other workers are safe. I have my clones watching them. The teen explained and picked up a piece of cloth. Without further protest she accepted the teen's help and they worked together in silence. Tsunami-san. They paused and she looked at him. I have to ask something of you. He continued. What can I do for you? She asked with her usual beautiful smile. I want you to bring the whole village to the bridge tomorrow afternoon but keep the children home, he explained while he hung up another piece of cloth. Tsunami stared at him confused while continued to hang up the clothes for drying. Why? She asked after a few moments of silence. I want to show Wave the spectacular end of its tyrant. Naruto gave her a fanged smile that gave the woman a shiver down her spine. But why shouldn't the children be there? She asked with a queasy feeling in her stomach. Because it will be pretty brutal. Naruto smiled as he picked up another piece of cloth. With that, the two continued their work in silence and walked into the house. Just before they entered, he created a clone that left for Team 7. The shadow clone crouched in a tree and watched Team 7 train. They were still trying to get the tree walking down. I should have a talk with Kakashi about his lax training in the near future, he thought and eyed the team. Kakashi leaned against a tree and read his smut as usual with a perverted giggle from time to time. You lazy idiot. The clone sighed. Sakura had her hands on her knees and was panting hard. She was obviously tired. I thought you had upped your training after the academy. I think I will give you a new training plan once we return to the leaf, he thought as he watched the pink-haired girl. Sasuke was still working hard, but the exhaustion was visible on his face. He definitely used way too much chakra in his attempts on the technique. You are too serious, brother. You need to be more relaxed, otherwise you will never master it, he thought as he watched the boy he saw as a brother. With that, he fell beside the older Jonin. You should pack away that smut and keep training your team, Kakashi, or I will do the former for you, the teen growled. Kakashi jumped as he hadn't noticed the teen landing beside him. Fast as lightning, he put the book in his pouch and stared at the teen wide-eyed. Naruto, when did you get here? He asked, startled. I observed your team's training for half an hour before I talked to you, he stated calm and continued to look at the two genin. And what do you think? Kakashi asked, nervous. I think we need to have a serious talk when we return to the leaf, Naruto explained with a eerie calmness. Kakashi gulped at the thought of a serious talk with the vampire teen. Don't worry, I will take Sakura under my tutelage for a while. You take Sasuke's training serious for once. The two are far behind the other teams. Once I finished my training with Sakura, she will be a real kunoichi. With her being stronger, she and Sasuke can be a real team, Naruto explained and stared off in the distance. Are you sure? I don't think the council will allow that, Kakashi whispered. I give a what the council says. If they try anything, I will expose all of their dirty little secret. After all, Jiraiya isn't the only one with a big spy network. The teen smiled, letting one of his fangs poke out between his lips. And by the way, I have the old man on my side, so they won't be a problem at all. He finished and pushed himself off the tree. Oh, and tell the two to get some rest. We will meet Zabuza and his associate tomorrow, he said and puffed out of existence. A shadow clone. I didn't even notice it. I thought he was the real one. Kakashi thought, a bit down at being tricked like that. I guess I will break the news to them once we get home. He sighed and pushed himself from the tree. With that, Kakashi called his team to call it a day and they left to get some rest. The next afternoon. Team 7, Naruto and the workers worked on the bridge waiting for the start of the next events. Nobody except the Jonin noticed the suddenly thickening mist around them till it was too late. Kurigakure no Jutsu was heard by the ninja and everyone was on the feet. Shit, is Zabuza already here? Sasuke whispered to no one in particular. Goken no Seigen Jutsu, Naruto whispered without anyone hearing it. Don't worry, Sasuke. I have it already covered, Naruto stated calm as he pulled out a cigarette and lit it. That earned him a scowl from the black-haired teen. Naruto, since when do you smoke? He asked. I started shortly after the Shinigami turned me into a vampire. He explained calm and took a deep breath. The kiddo is right, Naruto. You shouldn't smoke. Came a eerie calm voice from before them. Everyone tensed while the teen just smiled. Well, hello, Zabuza. I can smoke whatever I want. I can't get sick from it anyway. He shrugged as the two ninja became visible before him. Naruto, what's going on here? Sakura asked, confused. Oh, we are planning a big celebration soon and now only the guest of honor is missing. He smiled evil. How long do we have to wait? Zabuza asked, feeling a bit uneasy at the teen's grin. He should be here in about 10 minutes. Naruto shrugged and sat down while he unpacked a small scroll. What's that? Zabuza asked, curious. Naruto just smiled and unsealed a shogi board. Wanna play a game, Zabuza? He asked with a big smile. Everyone's sweat dropped at this but said nothing. Zabuza just shrugged and sat down before the teen and looked at the board. Everyone watched how the two ninja played their game of shogi and how easy the two seemed to take it. Minutes later, Zabuza groaned and leaned back, staring at the mist-covered sky. You are way too good, boy. Zabuza sighed. I play shogi since I was 7. So I have some experience after all. Naruto shrugged. The sound of marching feet interrupted Zabuza's answer. I guess they are here. Naruto sighed and resealed the shogi board. He flicked the cigarette away and stood up, stretching his back. What kind of demon are you anyway? You can't even defeat some kids. A haughty voice taunted through the mist as it began to lift. Everyone stared confused in the direction of the voice. Don't worry. It's a genjutsu I casted when Zabuza casted his Kurigakure no Jutsu. Okay, everyone, let's take a seat and enjoy the show. Naruto smiled and leaned against the fence. The whole village stood at the end of the bridge just as Gato and his army marched past them, not really acknowledging them. They watched a bit sad at how the ninja were fighting each other. Tsunami stared sadly, hoping that Naruto knew what he was doing. Gato stared at how beaten his hired ninja looked and laughed inwardly. Ha, I knew it was a good idea to not pay this idiot. He thought smugly. What kind of demon are you anyway? You can't even defeat some kids. He taunted and the beaten ninja looked at him. What do you want here, Gato? Zabuza growled. Ha, I knew it was good to never pay you. The midget laughed. You damn. Zabuza started but began to caught blood. Gato laughed hysterical while his man stayed silent but smirked. Suddenly the vision of the battle vanished and showed a complete new one. There sat the Konoha ninjas along with Zabuza, Haku and the bridge workers and looked at Gato amused. The fat midget stumbled backward with horror written at the new scene. What is going on here? He stuttered as he fell backwards. It's a genjutsu. One of his men smiled as he eyed the man in amusement. What do you mean? He demanded from his thug. It's a ninja technique to create illusions. Another thug shrugged with a eerie smile. Suddenly Gato noticed that his whole army stared at him with this eerie calm smile and it made him uneasy. What are you guys smiling at? He demanded as he stood up again. Oh, we are having so much fun. Sadly, it's over pretty soon. A third thug explained with a sad sigh. What? Gato demanded but was interrupted as his whole army was covered in smoke. Seconds later the smoke cleared and gasped a breathtaking view. There where his army stood before was now an army of the blonde boy that sat with the other ninjas. Gato whirled around and stared at said ninja. The Konoha ninjas and villagers were also confused while Zabuza just chuckled. Not bad, boy. You switched the whole army with your clone. He smiled and stood up to stretch his back. Yeah, I did that the first night we came here. Naruto smiled and lit another cigarette. Team 7 stared at him astonished. So that's where you went that day? Kakashi sighed. Of course. I raided the midget's mansion and freed the slaves before I casted a genjutsu over the whole building. Naruto shrugged and took a deep breath before he blew a cloud of blue smoke in the air. Gato meanwhile was fuming. If what the kid said was true, then everything he had gained was taken from him without even noticing it. What did you do with the real army? Naruto? Sakura asked, a bit afraid of the answer. Do you really have to ask Sakura? He blew out another cloud. She just shook her head and kept silent, turning a bit pale. Oh, you have so much talent. Why are you wasting it? Naruto thought sadly. Now Gato, let's end this. Naruto pushed himself off the fence and faced the man. Before Gato could answer, he found that he couldn't move. What is going on here? He thought, afraid. Everyone watched as a shadowy arms came from the midget's shadow and propped themselves on the floor. They heaved a equally shadow-covered body from the mon's shadow. The figure was definitely a human and had white eyes. When the upper body had emerged, it stopped being human. There was no lower body. The figure just stretched and rose behind Gato, laying its arms over the midget's. Well, Gato, how about I introduce you to one of my abilities? Naruto called casually. The figure stretched his neck till it went over the man's shoulder and faced him fully from the front. Think Orochimaru when he stretches himself. Gato felt like shitting himself but had no control over his body. Come on, my boy. Finish it. Naruto called to the shadow, which turned to him and nodded as a eerie white glowing smile appeared on its face. With that, it formed a shadow kunai and put it in Gato's hand. Slowly he guided the man's arm upwards towards his throat. Gato stared at the knife with fear in his eyes. He wanted to plead for mercy, but he still couldn't move. Then the kunai reached his throat and touched his sweating skin. The shadow looked at his boss for a last confirmation and got a nod. With that, he pulled back the kunai and rammed it into the midget's throat. A painful gurgling came from him as he slit his throat from one side to another. The sickening sound reached everyone because the villagers had walked over to see what was going on. Everyone turned pale as they saw the violence that the shadow displayed. Some even threw up. Finally, the smile on the shadow grew even bigger as he ripped the jacket open, revealing dozens explosive tags. Do it! Naruto cheered with a evil smile. The tags ignited and exploded. The explosion ripped the man apart and covered the area in gore and innards. The tyrant Gato was gone and done for. Everyone stared at this show of violence in disbelief, but soon some clapped. The clapping soon changed into cheering. You are pretty brutal, my boy. Zabuza smiled while he threw Sakura a sad look, seeing her puke over the bridge side. I hope she gets in shape soon, he whispered. Don't worry, she will. Naruto smiled as a shadow hushed into his own. What's that? Sasuke asked as he noticed the shadow. That was the shadow I used to control Gato. He was somewhat of a shadow clone made from my powers. Naruto shrugged and rolled his shoulders as if they were stiff. Come on, let's party for tonight. He called and walked to the cheering villagers while the army ended their existence in a big firework for everyone. The teen groaned a bit as he gained their memories but just shook his head. Thanks for stopping the flow of memories, Nei-chan, he thought. Don't worry, Otudo. Kunami smiled. He walked by and picked up a scroll one his clones had dropped and smiled. Everyone walked into the village where Naruto unsealed the content on a table. It was all the food and drinks his clone had taken from Gato's mansion. Come on, everyone. Let's party, he yelled, and everyone cheered. The party was big. Bigger than everyone could remember. This was awesome. The children soon joined in and partied. As Naruto's clones brought the freed women from the forest, tears flowed from many. seeing lost thought family members and friends. While everyone celebrated, Naruto walked up to Tazuna. Hey old man. Naruto greeted. What's up kiddo? He laughed slightly drunken. I have something for you. He smiled and handed the man a scroll which he eyed confused. What's that? He slurred a bit. It's all the money Gato took from Wave with interest and all documents of Gato's company. He smiled and Tazuna's face fell for a second. He seemingly sobered instantly at the teen's words. Wah! He tried to make sense. That's not all. Naruto smiled and leaned forward. I have gotten a word to the fire daimyo a few days ago and he likes my idea. He whispered to the now sobered man. Tazuna looked at him confused. He acknowledges my idea of giving you the title of the Wave Daimyo. He also got the other daimyos to like the idea. He smiled at the shocked expression on Tazuna's face. You, he stuttered. You just have to sign these papers and you are officially the new Wave Daimyo. The teen shrugged and pulled out a document. Right then and there the man fainted. Tsunami looked at her father and Naruto confused before he nodded to her to come over and explain what he told her father. He also handed her the documents along with the scroll he picked up from Tazuna. I think you should take control of Gato's company from now on. I think it would be the best for Wave if you continue it. Naruto smiled and went to have a blast himself, leaving a stunned Tsunami behind. Meanwhile, Inari stared at Naruto the whole time. He had tried to follow him the whole time but failed miserable as the teen moved faster than he could. After Naruto's little speech at the beginning of his stay, Inari had thought about it. Sadly, Inari had to acknowledge that he was right and tried to better himself. He had stopped thinking so negative and began to support his mother more. The next morning the whole village was silent. Everyone slept on the floor with happy smiles on their faces. They had a blast. It was the best party they had even from before Gato came around. Naruto sat under a tree and looked at the scene with a genuine smile. Zabuza walked out behind a tree and sat beside the teen. So what are you going to do now, Zabuza? He asked the missing nin while passing him a scroll. I don't know. I think Haku and I will join the resistance in Kiri. He shrugged. Oh, don't worry about that. Naruto sighed and leaned back. What do you mean? Zabuza asked, curious after he packed the scroll. You didn't read my bingo book entry seriously, did you? The vampire asked with a sigh. What do you mean? The swordman inquired again. I have killed Yagura a while ago. Mei-chan is the Godime Mizukage now. The war ended months ago. I thought you knew that and stayed only for the money. Naruto shrugged, ignoring the shocked expression on the man's face. But, what about the Sanbi? Zabuza wasn't sure if he actually wanted to know. Don't worry about him. He's sleeping right now. Naruto shrugged. What do you mean? I sent him back to God's realm where he will live in peace like he always wanted. Naruto explained casually as if he was talking about the weather. There was a sudden silence between the two and they just stared at the passed-out villagers before them. Oh, that reminds me. Naruto began and Zabuza turned to him. Mei-chan says that you should move your sari back to her or she will make fricassee of your manhood when she sees you again. You have 4 months. Oh, that was 3 months and 2 weeks ago. The teen snickered at the fearful look on the man's face. I have to go, was all Zabuza said and jumped up. He ran to Haku, picked him up and dashed away like a madman, hoping to get to Kiri before his time limit was over. Though Naruto could have sworn that he heard him mutter something. I will kick you for this when I see you the next time, brat. The man cursed and soon vanished from Naruto's sensor area. I guess things will get interesting. He smiled and closed his eyes with a calm smile. You can say that again, O Tuto. I just hope that you won't piss off someone stronger than you with your attitude. Kunami sighed at her surrogate brother's actions. Hey, I united the Revolution Army along with Mei-chan and ended the bloodline purge in 3 weeks and beat some sense in your brother before I send him home. Naruto tried to defend himself. I know, but I'm just worried about you, Otudo. Kunami sighed sad. Don't worry, Nei-chan. I won't go down so fast. He tried to cheer her up. I know. I'm still afraid that something could happen to you, Naruto. She sighed again and closed the connection. I will do everything to make you happy again, Nei-chan, even if I have to make a 180 degrees turn. I don't want you to be sad. He thought sadly, not knowing that Kunami listened to him with a slight blush. I hope you can do it, Naruto. She thought with a small smile. Team 7 and Naruto stood before the Hokage and waited for the old man's sign to start their report. So how did it go? He suddenly asked, not looking up from his work. Pretty good, even with us running into the Demon Brothers and Zabuza. We also eliminated Gato, and thanks to the other daimyos, Wave has a new one of their own. Naruto shrugged casually, not really showing any respect to his leader. Everyone in the room stared at him like he was crazy. He has balls of steel to talk to the Hokage like this, Kakashi thought. You should really respect you elders, Naruto. Iruka thought as he rubbed the bridge of his nose. Naruto Ni-san is awesome to be able to talk to the Hokage like this and go unpunished. Sasuke smiled at his brother in everything but blood. Sakura only stared empty-minded, not really knowing what to think of. Meanwhile, Sarutobi only chuckled. Okay then, I will upgrade the mission to A rank under supervision of Uzumaki Naruto. You are dismissed. He smiled and held up a copy of the scroll he had given the teen before they had left. Thanks you, Hokage-sama, old man. Everyone bowed, but not without Naruto gaining a glare from the Chunin teacher. Before we leave, I have a request for you, Hokage-sama. Naruto stated, serious, making everyone look at him because he used his leader's honorific. What kind of request? Sarutobi narrowed his eyes, knowing that the boy would only speak like that when it was something important or uncommon. I ask of you to disband Team 7 temporarily because I want to take Haruno Sakura under my tutelage for 3 months to get her into shape. Right now she is just barely above a first-year academy student. He explained, gaining a wide-eyed stare from everyone while Sakura just hung her head in depression. Furthermore, I wish for Hataki-san to take Uchiha-san's training serious and teach him the ins and outs of the Sharingan, and most importantly not to rely on its abilities only. He continued, and Sasuke smiled that his brother still cared for him. After 3 months of training, I wish for you to reinstate Team 7 just in time for the upcoming Chunin exam. Also, when during that time I wish to leave the village with my student due to an important mission regarding my guardians. He finished with his arms crossed over his chest. Kakashi's and Sarutobi's eyes widened at the mentioning of his guardians. They knew of both and feared them. One was obviously the great Kyuubi itself, and the other was the one that took his family from him but gave him a new power in exchange. The Shinigami herself. Wah! What kind of mission? The Hokage tried not to stutter. Sakura and Sasuke looked at their leader confused, not knowing what could make him so afraid. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, but I don't have the permission to talk about it freely, but if you wish you can ask my sister. Naruto smiled devilish at the mentioning of his sister, making them pale a bit. But Naruto, you don't have a sister. Sasuke stated firm. Not one running around, you are right. The young Jonin smiled. That confused the teens even more. Naruto, on the other hand, just looked at Sarutobi, who nodded in agreement, and he closed his eyes to let his sister take over. As he opened his eyes again, they lost their shining blue color and were replaced with glowing red eyes with slitted pupils. Well, hello again, Sarutobi. I see you are doing good. A powerful female voice came from Naruto's mouth. Hello Kurami-sama. The old man shuddered under her gaze. Oh, no need to be so uptight, little one. I mean no harm to anyone at the moment. You can call me Kurami-chan like my Otudo. She smiled as her eyes softened. I will call Naruto she as long as Kurami is in control. Very well then Kurami-chan. The old man coughed. So what is this mission Naruto spoke of? He found his composure again. Ah, the mission. She mused for a second. She wants us to find my clan for an important mission. I'm sorry but I can't say any more. She chuckled. So when will this mission start then? He asked. She will visit and tell us when everything is ready. Kurami smiled. Very well then. I grant Uzumaki Naruto and his temporary student Haruno Sakura traveling rights for 3 months. Everything longer than this will be handled like an attempt to defect from the village. Team 7 will temporarily be disbanded and Uchiha Sasuke will be placed under the tutelage of Hatake Kakashi. The Hokage stated serious as he eyed the mentioned 2 people. Sakura just stood there in shock while Sasuke tried to wrap his mind around the fact that his brother seemingly had a sister and that she lived inside of him. Kakashi just sighed knowing that if he didn't take Sasuke's training serious, Naruto would kill him if his family didn't find him first. Iruka was frozen in his place since Kurami took her brother's body. He knew of the Kyuubi but not that the 2 called each other siblings. To be honest, he was about to piss himself because he stood in front of the very thing that killed his parents and was too afraid to even move a muscle. To his fear she turned her sight to him. The serious look vanished and made place for a sorrowful one. I'm sorry Iruka. I know I can't undo what I did back then but I hope we can somehow move on and try to be at least on a neutral level with each other if we can't be friends. She bowed to him. He tried to answer but he didn't trust his voice. So he only nodded just as she rose her head again. She gave him a soft smile. Thank you Iruka. She smiled and turned to the Hokage. I guess I should go back now. Naruto is getting hungry. She smiled, getting a shiver from the people. With that she closed her eyes again and let Naruto take over again. You said everything you wanted. He thought, his eyes still closed. Yes. Thank you. With that she went to sleep. I guess you want to know about another case? The Hokage asked knowing that Naruto was already back. No. He smiled and opened his blue eyes. I have enough food in my scrolls at the moment. After draining a whole army of thugs I have enough for a while. He shrugged and turned to the door. I will see you later old man and Haruno, he stated without turning around. Why? Yes. She stuttered. Come to my compound tomorrow morning 0800. We will start your training at my private training ground. And pack enough clothes for 3 months because you will stay at my compound till you finished your training. No useless stuff. He explained and held a piece of paper towards her, still looking at the door. She took it and saw an address on it. And don't be late. You can ask Kakashi what happens to slowpokes. He growled and looked over his shoulder with his eyes glowing white. Hi. She yelled and bowed deeply. With that the young Jonin left the office to make preparations for his new student. There was a heavy silence in the room. Everyone stared at the door and the still bowing Sakura. She finally straightened herself and looked at her now former sensei. Kakashi-sensei. What did Naruto mean? She asked unsure. Kakashi just shivered but lifted his shirt halfway up, showing a scar around his waist and a heavily scarred back. Sakura gulped while Sasuke eyed them curiously. I was once late to a meeting with him and he tied me up with ninja wire. Then he tied a wire rope around my waist and dragged me across the training ground and across the village in an inhuman speed for 4 hours. I was sent to the hospital for a month because of that, and as if that wasn't enough, he also burned all my books, so I had nothing to do but stare at the white walls the whole time, he explained and wailed at the end. The teens looked at him in shock and a bit of disgust because of his books. Sakura shivered at the thought of this happening to her, so she made a promise to herself not to be late under any circumstances. Naruto walked through the town ignoring the glares some of the people sent him and made his way to his most favorite spot. The Firefly Cafe. It was just across from the store his friend worked at part-time. As usual, he ordered a small coffee and took his seat. Without anyone noticing, he slipped a sip of blood into his coffee and stirred it. His eyes wandered to the blonde girl hurrying through the flower store and taking care of the plants. Flashback. Naruto age 6. It was late and already dark outside. A blonde girl hurried through the streets to get home. She had the feeling that she was being followed. A shiver ran down her spine at that thought, so she hurried even more. Suddenly a pair of big hands grabbed her, covering her mouth, and dragged her in a dark alley. She struggled and tried to yell for help, but the hand over her mouth muffled any noise she could make. "You better stay quiet, cutie, or we will hurt you," a rough male voice whispered near her ear. The smell of alcohol and the fear froze her in shock. A few voices snickered around her and 3 men stepped into her sight. They were all tall and heavy build and most obviously drunk. "Come on, what's taking you so long? Strip the bitch already," one snarled. Tears gathered in the girl's eyes and she tried to break free of her captor's grip, but to no avail. One of the thugs grabbed her top and ripped it apart. A muffled scream escaped her as her body was exposed to these lowlifes. "I'm first," a bald man slurred. He unzipped his pants and was let them fall to his ankles. "Mommy. Daddy. Help," the poor girl wailed in her mind and pressed her eyes shut. The man bowed over her, preparing himself for his sick pleasure, as a sudden yell of pain came from him. The girl felt warm liquid drop on her and she shuddered even more. The men that were standing guard whirled around and stared at their now physical incapacitated leader. Behind him stood a red-haired kid with a weird sword. He had just cut off the thugs, making him whimper in pain and holding his now unusable groin. "You little piece of shit," one of them yelled and charged forward with a bottle in hand to attack the kid. With a slow sidestep, the kid evaded the attack and cut the mont's head off. Everyone stared at him in shock. Then the shock turned into anger. They all stormed towards the kid, hoping to kill him. Seconds later, they were all slaughtered and only minced meat. He swung his sword to the side, cleaning it of these lowlifes' blood. Twirling it by the ring on the handle, he put it away in a fast move and turned to the nearly fully exposed girl. She had opened her eyes again as everything felt silent. She witnessed how he swung his sword to the side like a professional swordman, cleaning it of the blood. That made her look around, still afraid and nearly gagged at the sight of the dead men. Steps caught her attention and she turned to the sound. The boy was walking towards her with his eyes shadowed as he took of his coat. She shuddered again, thinking he wanted to attack her too, and tried to crawl away only to be enveloped into a warm feeling. Her fearful eyes wandered upwards and met calm blue ones. The boy had wrapped her up in his coat. Before she could understand what was going on, her lifted her up bridal style and jumped towards a roof. She clawed herself onto him and closed her eyes. Not even a minute later the movement stopped, but she didn't dare to open her eyes. The blonde felt her savior's body shift a bit and a knocking sound was heard. Seconds later the door opened and a tall man emerged the door. "Ino!" he yelled as he saw his daughter in the boy's arms, whimpering with blood in her hair. A felt nanosecond later a woman stood in front of the boy and grabbed the girl from him and vanished into the house again. The boy just stood there with a dumbfounded expression on his face only to be lifted up by his collar. He came face to face with a very angry father. "What did you do to my daughter?" he yelled at the top of his lungs, not being able to control his anger. "I did nothing to her, Yamanaka-san. I only saved her from being raped by some worthless thugs," the boy explained, calm, not even shocked by being yelled at. Yamanaka Inoichi stared at the boy dumbfounded till a new flame of hatred flickered in him. "Where are they?" he yelled. "Minced meat and meeting the Shinigami," he explained, emotionless, holding the mont's angry glare. Inoichi sighed and set the boy down. "Thank you for saving my daughter, Naruto-kun," he bowed to the boy. Here his wife never hated the boy for being a Jinchuriki. In fact, they were one of the few supporters he had in the village because of their relationship with his parents. Not that the boy knew this, but he accepted their help when it was given. "Don't think too much of it, Yamanaka-san. I only did what I thought was right. She is too pure to be defiled by such low-lifes. With that, I have to excuse myself because I'm leaving the village with my godfather tonight." He bowed and walked away, leaving a surprised man behind. "So that pervert has finally enough guts to come back here after 6 years, Inoichi growled, but turned to more important matters, namely his daughter. Ino had recovered from her traumatic experience and had developed a big crush on her savior. From her parents she had learned that his name was Uzumaki Naruto. What depressed herself a bit was that she never got to thank him because he left the same night he saved her. Now 13 years old, she sat in the classroom of the academy ready to take the genin exam. Unlike many girls, she didn't ogle Sasuke, which made her a good person in the Uchiha's book. The two had become great friends after they found out that they both cherished Naruto. To Sasuke he was a brother, and to her the love of her life. Sasuke even encouraged her to talk to him once he returned. Despite her crush on the redhead, she had a boyfriend at the moment. She hoped to get some experience in handling such a relationship, and her parents had encouraged to do so. Even if her dad was a bit childish when it came to such things. But today was something else going on beside the genin exam. Naruto was coming back to the village from what Sasuke had told her. "Okay, brats. Let's start the written part of the exam," Mizuki yelled in a fake happy tone. Everyone glared at him, making his smile sink. Suddenly the door opened and a teen with black leather clothes, a Konoha hite knitted onto his belt, and a bad sword stepped in. Ino's and Sasuke's eyes lit up as they saw him. The teen's red hair was unmistakable. "Naruto!" they yelled with a big smile. He gave both of them a big smile before he stepped aside to evade a giant shuriken fly past him. Everyone stared at the scene and their eyes wandered to their sensei Mizuki. The man growled that the teen had evaded his attack and charged forward with 2 kunai in his hands. Naruto simply jumped over him and made a twist in the air to deliver a sideway kick to the Chunin's head. The power behind the kick was enough to make Mizuki fly into the wall, creating a huge crater in it as he met it head first. The man sunk to the ground, barely being able to hold on to consciousness. "Mizuki, on orders of the Sandaime Hokage, you are to be arrested and brought to the T&I department under the suspicion of treachery and cooperation with the traitor Orochimaru," Naruto stated, cold and emotionless, making everyone shiver. Mizuki tried to stand up but couldn't find the strength to do so, so he just gave the teen the middle finger. Naruto picked him up by his throat and lifted him off his feet. Quote, "On the contrary, I have all the authority I need. I am a special Jonin and I am acting on the orders of the Hokage himself. That is more than enough to take you down. But now that you have resisted arrest and broke the Sandaime's law, I have the authority to kill you," Naruto explained as his eyes turned white. Not that anyone beside Mizuki saw that. With that, the teen ripped the chunin into pieces, gaining many gasps and gagging noises from the teens. Jiraiya leaned in the door and sighed at the mess. The ripped-apart Mizuki began to sink into the shadow of the room and left no trace behind. Naruto turned to Iruka and bowed. "I'm sorry for disturbing the exam and damaging your classroom, Iruka-san. Please continue what you were doing. I will pay for the repairs." He then turned and walked to the door. "I'll see you two later." He smiled and looked towards Sasuke and Ino. With that, he left the class to their exam, not that anyone really noticed it. "You are so awesome, Naruto-kun," Ino thought with a crimson blush because he had met her eyes despite his cruel actions just now. She had seen the cruel reality as she visited her father at work a few years ago. Since then she had steeled herself to the real life of a shinobi. "You are already a special Jonin. I guess I have some training to catch up on. But it's good to have you back, Ni-san." Sasuke smiled, not noticing the glares his fangirls through the door Naruto had just left through. That bastard took all of Sasuke-kun's attention. "He's mine," was their common thought. They didn't even realize that had just murdered a man. "Iruka-sensei, who was that?" Kiba asked, confused, still shivering. "That was the bloody fang of Konoha, Uzumaki Naruto." Iruka smiled as he remembered his talk with the Hokage a few days earlier about the boy's return. He was one of the few people who cared about the boy when he was little, but he couldn't take him in because the civilian council didn't allow it. Seeing him like this was a bit disturbing, but the nod Jiraiya had given him soothed his worries of the Kyuubi having taken over the teen's mind. "Hey, I have heard of him. He is supposed to be the only one in Konoha's history to have a bingo book entry at the age of 7. He is supposed to be a bloody monster," Choji yelled, letting his bag of chips fall to the table in shock, already a bit green from the previous scene. "He is supposed to be AA ranked ninja if I remember correctly," Shino stated monotone, though if you would look closely you could see him shaking. Everyone fell silent. Nobody knew how to deal with this. If that was true, then they just now witnessed one of the greatest shinobi of their era do his work. Heck, the boy was their age and was already so famous. Ino giggled at their expression because she had kept a close eye on Naruto's career outside the village through gossip and his bingo book entry. Sasuke just smiled, but inwardly he was shocked. He hadn't known that his brother was so famous. He knew that Naruto had a bingo book entry, but he neglected to look at it because he wanted to hear all the awesome stories from him personally. "Guess I will ask him about it later." He sighed and turned his attention to the task at hand. "Okay, kids. Let's continue with the test," Iruka yelled, gaining many groans from his students because many were too distracted from the young Jonin's appearance that they forgot most of the stuff they had learned for the exam. Iruka only smiled as he saw their distress. He knew that Naruto's entrance had a subtitle. It was a test of its own to see if the upcoming genins had it in them to concentrate even when something surprising like this happened. Though he was surprised that Mizuki was a traitor and how Naruto had dealt with him. He and his company sensei hadn't gotten along for a while now because Mizuki seemed more ferocious lately. The man had seen his fair share of death, so he wasn't really bothered by it. Flashback end. Hey Naruto. Someone called and he snapped out his thoughts. He looked up and saw his crush standing before him. Her long blonde hair loose over her back. The big smile on her lips warmed his heart. "Hey there, Ino-chan." He waved and she took a seat beside him. "Since when are you back?" she asked, propping her head in her hands. "A few hours ago. I just got out of a meeting with the Hokage." He sighed and took a sip from his coffee. "So how did it go?" she asked, eager to hear of his mission. "It went smoothly. We had a run-in with the Demon Brothers and Zabuza, but the latter backed off because of my reputation." We even freed the wave country from a tyrant. He shrugged with a smile. You lucky bastard. She whined with a cute pout. Don't worry, Ino-chan. I'm sure you will have your own awesome mission soon enough. He smiled and patted her head. Her smile brightened up and enjoyed the feeling, but she noticed something in her friend's behavior. What's wrong, Naruto? She asked, worried. It's nothing. I just told the team about my Kekkei Genkai. He explained with a sigh. And how did they react? She asked, worried, getting a hold of his hand. I think they took it well, but I'm a bit worried. He sighed again and leaned back against his chair. Don't worry about it. I'm sure that everything will work out. She soothed her friend. Thank you, Ino-chan. He smiled and gave her a small fanged smile. You should get some rest. You look like the living dead. She gave him a small chuckle, which he returned because of her joke. Will do. Don't overwork yourself and greet your parents from me. He smiled and set a few ryo on the table. See you later, Naruto. She waved and ran back to the flower shop. Naruto's eyes followed her retreating form. His eyes stopped on a flower pod that held a aloe plant and frowned as his thoughts went to Ino's current boyfriend. Shikamaru was a nice guy, but something seemed to be on him lately. The redhead had met him shortly after he had graduated, and despite his anger for being with his crush, he liked the guy quite a bit. He was smart and calm, maybe a bit too lazy for his taste. But lately he seemed to be distracted by something and left Ino to herself more and more. Maybe I'm seeing a bit too much into it. He shrugged and vanished in a lightning shunshin to get some rest at his compound. Hey mom, I'm going to stay with my new Jonin sensei till the beginning of the Chunin exam in 3 months. He is going to teach me a lot of new stuff. Sakura yelled as she ran upstairs and began to pack her stuff, always remembering her warning. What do you mean, new Jonin sensei? Haruka Haruno called after her and followed her. Well, I got a new sensei. He promised me to make me stronger so that I could make Chunin in the exams in 3 months. She explained, packing her stuff into her traveling bag. Why do you have to stay with him then? You can always go to meet him. Her mother asked, confused. Well, he wants to start early and he lives on the other side of Konoha. So going there every day would take too long. Plus we are leaving the town some when during training to get some experience, Sakura explained with excitement. Oh, this new sensei sounds like someone really strong, Haruka teased. Well, yes. He is the bloody fang of Konoha after all. The teen shrugged and mother froze up. She knew who hid behind the alias and she hated him with a passion. Why do you want to train with him? She hissed at her daughter. Sakura looked at her mother, confused. One moment she was happy and then she got angry. Does she have a problem with Naruto-san? She thought. Well, the Hokage ordered me to train under him. The bubblegum girl shrugged. Well then, that sounds reasonable. Haruka hissed with venom, thinking on how to rip the Hokage a new one. Well mom, I need to prepare some stuff for tomorrow. Do you need anything else from me? She asked her fuming mother. No. That's all. With that she stomped outside. What the hell? Sakura muttered, looking after her. She then shrugged it off as her mother's usual overprotectiveness acting up again. Naruto sat in his garden meditating. His mind sorting through the training he had planned for Sakura. He knew she had potential, but how to acquire it? One of her 3 problems was that she's missing physical fitness. The second was that her chakra reserves were a joke, and finally third, she missed creativity. Well, I guess I should go and get some scrolls for her. The ones I have are insufficient at her level. He sighed and created 4 clones. Alpha, you go to Kurenai to get scrolls on basic genjutsu and some advanced scrolls. Beta, you go to the library and hospital to get books on anatomy and medical jutsu. Theta you go Anko-chan and get a scroll on poisons. Gamma you go through my library on genjutsu, medshul jutsu and poisons. Yes boss, they shouted and vanished in a shunshin. Now then, I guess I should prepare the training gear for Sakura. He sighed and with a puff of smoke her unsealed a scroll from the inner pouch of his hakama. He unrolled it and looked over the many different sealing matrix in it. He coated his right fingertips in chakra and began to touch different seals, activating them. 5 puffs of smoke later he rolled the scroll up again. First was a special set of training wrappings with strengthening seals so that they can withstand his training. Second were wrist and ankle bands with gravity seals. Third was a battle kimono specially created for ninja, made from chakra conductive material to harden it if needed. Fourth, a set of training weapons with gravity and strengthening seals. And fifth, a ink set so he can draw seals when needed. He eyed everything calm and collected before he sighed. Okay, this will be some serious training. Sakura will cry for mercy in the evening. He smirked. A static feeling ran over his skin. Wordlessly he created another clone who walked to the front door. Hello Sakura-san. He stated as he opened the door. Hello Naruto-san. She bowed to him. Come in. I will bring you to the boss. The clone stepped aside and let her in. Boss? She asked confused as she came in. I'm only a shadow clone. Naruto is waiting for in the training field. We will leave your bag on the veranda. He stated and guided her to his boss. With a gesture he told her to drop her bag as they passed the veranda and walked out of the house and towards the training field. There she saw another Naruto balancing cross-legged on a bamboo shoot. Welcome Sakura-san. I must congratulate you on your timeliness. You are 15 minutes early. He smiled but his eyes stayed close. Thank you Naruto-san. She bowed but blushed at the sound of her rumbling stomach. Well, since you are early I guess there is still time to eat breakfast. He nodded towards his clone and he went to get something to eat. While we wait let me explain this training to you. He gestured her to sit in front of him. Naruto lifted his right leg from over his left and let it hung loosely downwards so that he only sat on the bamboo with one leg. Then he leaned to the right side and fell. With a twist of his body he kicked the bamboo shoot in the air and landed on his feet. As the shoot came down he caught it in his left and leaned it over his shoulder. Sakura gaped at his acrobatic skills though they were nothing unusual in their business. With a flick of his wrist a cigarette appeared in his hand and he stuck it in his mouth. With a flick of his fingers he created a small flame atop his right index finger to light his cancer stick. Shaking his hand he extinguished the flame and took a deep breath. Now listen close. This training will be hell. I have training gear and clothes for you ready. We will start with applying resistance seals to your body. He explained. What kind of seals are that? She asked confused and tilted her head a bit. A resistance seal does just what its name says. It puts a set amount of resistance against each move you make. It would be like walking in water. He shrugged. And how do you apply these seals? She asked confused. With ink on your bare back. He shrugged taking out a ink can and a brush. She immediately blushed tomato red and her mind went into overdrive. But I don't, she stuttered. Don't worry Sakura-san. I don't plan on taking your innocence. He smirked at her sputtering. I only need your back bare so I can apply the seal between your shoulder blades. You can cover the rest of your body. Then after the ink is dry you will change into the training gear behind the curtain over there and we will start your training. He explained and pointed towards a tree where a curtain hung over a deep hanging branch. She only nodded and began to open her top. While doing that she turned around and let her top slide downwards and covered her chest with her arms. Well, I didn't meant now. Oh well, she can eat after she changed. He thought, surprised. So he set himself to work and began to apply one of his personal resistance seals. This one was stronger than the usual ones. A few minutes later he stopped and eyed the seal for any fails. To his surprise, her blush was seemingly so hot that the ink dried instantly. He pressed his thumb against the ink and found it really dry. That's some serious skill. Maybe she has a high fire affinity like me, he thought. Now Sakura-san, please go change into the training outfit I have placed behind the curtain, and under no circumstances channel chakra into while dressing or you could hurt yourself, he ordered, and she hushed behind the curtain, not daring to look at him. A few minutes passed, and as she came back and sat in front of Naruto again, he handed her a plate with some rice balls and nodded. Eat up. You will need the energy, he explained, and she nodded thankfully. After she finished her breakfast, he placed the plate on a stone behind him and turned to her with a serious expression. Now let's get down to business. You have 3 weaknesses that make you currently unfit to be a shinobi, he stated serious, and she hung her head. The first problem is that you're missing physical fitness. The second is that your chakra reserves are a joke. The squirrel in the tree has more than you, and finally you're missing creativity on the job. His voice was soft, but his words stung like burning needles under skin. Now, don't let this get you down. I will bring you up to my standard. My training will be hard, but it will be worth it. He soothed her and stroked her head. She looked at him surprised but smiled. Now I want you to activate your resistance seal on level 1, he ordered her. How do I do that? She asked, confused. Think of a small cup the size of your fist and fill it with chakra, then place this amount into the seal. That is enough to activate it. Then don't move for the next few minutes till the seal attuned to your body, he explained, and she did as she was told. A shudder ran through her body and she stared at him surprised. Don't worry. The seal is only scanning the size of your chakra pool to set a limit for the seal. While building up your chakra pool, the seal will attune itself while you're asleep so that it can set new limits for your training. It might take a minute or so, he explained calm, and waited for the seal to finish its job. While we wait, I will explain you how we will work. At first I will bring up your physical strength and your chakra pool, and when I think you have progressed far enough I will start on your creativity. Once I see good progress in all 3 fields I will start on your justice. I will teach you the basics and some advanced techniques of genjutsu, medical jutsu and kenjutsu. But I will only give you a sword if you are worth it, he explained with a dark glint in his eyes at the end. What do you mean, worth it? She managed to say as the seal set itself on level 1. The swords I have are special. You could say they are a part of me by blood. He shrugged and rolled his shoulder. How's that? She tilted her head and found it pretty hard to move. The blacksmith who made it used my blood and worked it into the blade. Like this it gained my affinities and made it so that it can only be wielded by me. His eyes darkened as he remembered the perverted blacksmith. That sounds scary, she whispered. Don't worry about it now. You have a long way to go to earn such an honor, he stated firm, and she nodded. Now I want you to put the same amount of chakra into each wrist and ankle bands as you did into the resistance seal. This will give you about 20 kilos on each of your limb. After that I will give you 1 hour to get used to the weight before I hunt you around the training ground, he ordered, and she paled. But that's too much, she stuttered. Too much you say? Girl, I started with the double weight. Right now my resistance seals, plural, are on level 10. That means 10 times more resistance than you have each. My weights are 500 kilos each limb. So don't whine and start to get used to it. When I'm finished with you, You will carry at least 150 kilos each limb, he stated stern and glared at her. She nodded barely. She couldn't run away from him because she couldn't really move and she didn't know how to deactivate the seals. Plus she was there on the Hokage's orders. Single quote. For the rest of the day Naruto trained the pink-haired girl. Hey, did you hear? The demon is seducing councilwoman Haruno's daughter. A civilian whispered as she saw the pair walk by. Sakura looked tired and sluggish while Naruto just walked with a emotionless expression. That demon should have been killed the day he was born.